Hello, good afternoon, and welcome. I'm Sally Glick with Sobel Co. I am in a wonderful crowded room in Livingston, and I don't know why you people are on the phone and not here with us, enjoying a fabulous opportunity to network and have lunch, but I am glad that you have phoned in and are joining us remotely. We have Vicki Bixel here today, and I was going to prepare a number of remarks to make to introduce her. And then I realized if you look at a room that is jam-packed from front to back, and you know that equally as many people are online, you probably don't have to say much else. I think Vicki's reputation as an extraordinary fundraiser and capital campaign manager director goes without saying. When I call her and say, we have a topic we'd like to discuss, and she says yes, I know I could take that one and cross it off and not worry about it at all. When we first talked about trends in fundraising and all the things that are going on, I just knew there was absolutely nobody better to handle this, and she is here today, and we'll get us started. If you have questions, you can type them in. We will address them as best we can. And so I say get out your pencil and paper, and over the next hour, get ready to write a lot of notes. So, Vicki, it's yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am thrilled, as always, to be with all of you. And I was thinking about how best should we start this off. And for me, living in this crazy world that we do, I think the best way that we started off is actually by taking a very deep breath. There is so much that we are going to talk about today, and it will not cover everything we need to talk about when it comes to trends in philanthropy. When Sally had called me and we started talking about what exactly will be in this presentation, a lot of it has changed, and it's only been 1 month. And to some extent, that frightens me because that tells me exactly what type of world we are living in today. But I remind each and every one of us that the fundamentals of fundraising, the fundamentals of giving, and philanthropy itself is strong, and it's the same as it always has been. So as we dive into this presentation, let's keep that in mind, that we're going to hear things today that perhaps we've known for a long time, or perhaps we just read about in the Chronicle of Philanthropy, or perhaps we don't know about at all and we want to learn more about. I want you to know this is very much an overview because this would be a conversation that would take weeks and weeks, and by the end of those weeks, we'd have to start all over again. So one place that I like to start, and if you have heard me speak before, you would know that it is with giving in the United States. The clicker's not working. Keep talking. So when you look at giving in the United States, based on Giving USA Foundation, it's about a $410 billion industry. I want you to take that in when we talk about billions in the United States. Philanthropy is a $410 billion industry. And when we think about the amount of people who are employed by nonprofits, who volunteer for nonprofits, who give to nonprofits, it is a big number. Additionally, when we look at what type of organizations people give to and the priorities that they have, Giving USA tells us that for so many years, as it's been recording this information, that education and religion are the two pieces of the pie that are the largest. People continue to give to their churches, to their synagogues, to their mosques. People continue to give to their universities, their kids' schools, Del Barton, Oak Knoll, all of those. Those are famous Jersey names. Mm-hmm. People have not stopped investing in those two things. But what we have seen is that investment in healthcare, investment in social service continues to increase because our needs as a community and a society within those two areas continues to increase. Think about what are the major topics right now in the United States? Immigration? Healthcare. Healthcare. So people are looking and saying, where are the best return on my investment? What is the best return on me in the future? So when I give a gift to Morristown Memorial or to Overlook or to any of the hospitals, my hope is they're going to be there when I need them. When I give a gift to an immigration center, okay, my hope is that it's going to go to the right place and they're going to do the right thing with that gift. Are we good? Okay, great, thank you. So with that said, you'll also see that while environmental and animals is 3%, keep in mind that number is going to continue to go up. When the climate change report came out several weeks ago that said we have about 10 to 12 years before the Earth explodes, people started really, really paying attention. Okay, when it comes to arts and culture and humanities, we've got in the room State Theater, we've got Pam from Wharton School. This is something that we're investing in, not only because we believe in arts education, but because we also need a break. We need to be entertained. We need to laugh. We need to hear a violin every once in a while, and we need to see a dancer up there. And so as we look, as Americans who are giving, it is important to know that every single piece of this pie is just as important as the other. Yes, religion is big. Yes, education is big, but so is every other piece. So what did we see in 2018? Did anybody hear about tax reform? I need to give a shout out to my friend and colleague, Linda Zippo from Center of Nonprofits. Linda was out there beating this drum, trying to educate us about what this is going to mean. She's still doing it. She provided an end-of-year report as to what's ahead. And I was reading it, I was sweating and laughing at the same time, thinking we really are on a roller coaster and we cannot predict the future. With tax reform, people have asked me, what exactly is happening with that? How is that impacting giving? And I'll tell you, I'm not certain yet what the answer is on that. Let me give you an example. And I was just telling Mark this. Chronicle of Philanthropy had an article in early January, and the article said that giving among big donors is going down because of the stock market. Yesterday, the Chronicle of Philanthropy had an article that said end-of-year giving was high and that people were exceeding their goals or remaining where they were. Which is it? I don't know the answer yet because I think we're still tallying up how exactly we did. But when we look at end-of-year, I'd love to know from some of you in the room, what were your results? How'd you do? Same? Good. That's good. Anybody exceed? Helen, JBWS? Anybody go lower? You did go lower. Okay. And what is your mission?
We're Employment Horizons, so job sampling and vocational rehab for adult disabilities.
Okay. All right. And Peter, right? Yeah, there you are. Okay. And your Catholic Charities, Archdiocese of Newark. Have you seen at all why it went down yet? Not yet. Okay, so things will become clearer as time progresses as to what you need to focus on. But overall, most people are saying to me they're where they were in 2017 or they're exceeding it. That is a good thing. I also read a report that in 2019 there's a prediction, okay, that giving is going to be higher. I'm sure tomorrow they'll say giving will be lower. It all depends on how well we really, really execute our development plans. How well do we continue to retain our donors? And how well are we getting our message out there that it's not about tax deductibility. Sorry, Ron, all the accountants in the room. That it's really about giving to an organization because you believe in it, because you want to see it succeed, and you want to make sure that the people it's serving are succeeding as well. The impact investing, so I was recently reading that it's actually waning now. So the idea was looking amongst foundations was making sure that their endowments, to some extent, their portfolios, were invested in socially conscious organizations, okay? And that conversation continues on in the boardrooms with the foundation. But I also hear that people are walking away from impact investing and going back to traditional investing. I'm going to say this right now. I am not a financial person, but I keep an eye on this because every time something new pops up in philanthropy, it is our job to make sure that we understand to the best of our ability what exactly that means. So I would encourage you to keep an eye on it because I don't think impact investing is in the past, nor is social investing. I think we're going to see more of it. Cryptocurrency, we're going to talk about that. I have so many opinions on that, but I'll remain objective as I can be. And Jeff Close is here, all right, and he will tell you that donor-advised funds boomed over the past year, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And blended gifts, does anyone know what that is? We call it, you're a financial guy, comprehensive gifts. So we're living in a society where we have savvy philanthropists. And I say that not talking about Bill Gates. I say that talking about my neighbor who just gave their first gift of $3,000 pledged over 3 years and is jumping up and down, first trying to figure out how they're going to pay it, and second saying, I can't believe I made a gift this big. It feels really good. You know what? She's a philanthropist to me. It's the person who continues to invest their time through volunteering day in and day out. Yesterday, I was at Mercer Street Friends down in Trenton, and I was over at their food bank, and there were volunteers there who come every single day and invest 35 hours in that organization. You want to see what a mission is? That's it. So the investments that people are making is truly extraordinary with the money, with the time, and they are the philanthropists. So because we have mature philanthropists, because we have savvy philanthropists, we now have blended gifts, comprehensive gifts, and we are at a peak time of planned giving, when people are writing organizations into their will and making that commitment, and the organizations are praying that it is not revocable. And so with a blended gift, I would challenge you, when you have a larger donor, that you sit with that donor and say to them, you've been kind enough to give us $5,000 over the past couple of years, okay? And you've also indicated that you'd like to make a large gift to our capital campaign, our endowment. Great. And we'd also like you to consider leaving us in your will. So what are your thoughts, Frank and Sally, if you gave us a gift of $25,000 over the next 5 years? A piece will go to annual fund, a piece will go to our gala, a piece will go to our capital campaign. And let's talk a little bit more about a planned gift. We've got one shot with donors now, because when you think about the amount of competition that we are dealing with, it's extraordinary. Every corner there is a nonprofit. And so many times we are dealing with missions that are overlapping with one another. So how will you, as an organization, stand out amongst all when you are making these savvy asks, these solicitations, these comprehensive asks? And then looking at political giving increase. I'm going to tell you, I've been doing this almost 20 years, and every time people ask me over the years, how does a presidential election or a midterm election affect giving? I've said it really doesn't. It really doesn't. Guess what?
It does now.
Sure does. We're living in a new time, and we're going to talk about that. During the month of October, individuals that we solicited said to me, come back to me after November 6th. My money has gone to the midterm elections. I have never heard those words before in my career. We cannot ignore now what's happening politically and how it impacts giving to us. And then finally, we talked about end of year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when it comes to tax. But what's the breakdown? Where are we going? What do we need to pay attention to? This is my ego, me. I am 41 years old. I own my own business. Yes, I work for nonprofits. I have 2 children, and not a lot of people ask me for money. Nikki's young, which I'm grateful for. Nikki works with nonprofits, so she doesn't have any money. Fair enough. Okay. But what they're not realizing is, you know what, I do want to give, and I do want to be engaged. And guess what? I don't have a lot of time, but bring me closer to you. Here's what I love. The arts. I love children organizations, especially when they're focused on poverty. And I love education. So we'll talk about that. But there is a generation, my generation, that was called the baby bust. I have no resentment over being called that. But it is a reality that's in front of us, and we must pay attention to that. And then corporate giving. It's going up. I can't believe it. Finally. We've been waiting for this moment. Now, it's not exponential, but it is going up. And then what are the giving patterns that we're seeing? I'll give you some statistics on that. And then also diversity. I know this is a conversation that we're having day in, day out. And I will tell you that next week, AFP New Jersey is having Elizabeth Williams-Riley from American Conference on Diversity speak. And this is a serious conversation that we all must be having. And we'll talk about diversity. And then 2016, the year that prompted so much. So generation lost or right in front of us. How many of you have focused on millennials? For real, how many? Aren't they great? They're great. They're very tech savvy. They give us their opinions. But there's an entire generation before them that we need to pay attention to. There are 65 million Generation Xers in the United States of America. They are making average gifts of almost $1,000. Okay.
Generation X.
Generation X is, I'm on the end, it's 1959 to 1976. Yeah.
Does the 23% mean that that's 23% of each one?
Of all giving in the United States.
I see.
Yes. Okay. And here's what we're giving to: health, social services, social justice, animals, and children. And we will inherit $40 trillion. If there's a reason why that's in bold. We have to pay attention. The wealth that is being transferred is remarkable. Family foundations are now creating these succession plans that we have to pay attention to. And the succession plans include, within the family foundations, different guidelines. Getting to know the children of philanthropists is one of our #1 jobs over the next several years. We must. We have no choice. Boomers are still giving, and they are the highest givers, and for that we are grateful, but there is a generation that cannot be lost. We are the ironic generation. Does anybody get that? Don't you? Yeah. Okay. You listen to a lot of Alanis Morissette, Jeff. So how exactly do you engage my friends? How do we do it? Years ago, I was giving a presentation, and they said, well, how do we do it? Wine and cheese? And I said, no, martinis. That's what we like. But personal communications, love it. Emails, yes. Text, yes. Social media, yes. There was a report that my generation does not like phone calls. I got to tell you, being in the car 24/7, I like phone calls, right? It's also so personal, and we like personal, right? Easy volunteer opportunities. Mercer Street, I can go to the food bank. I can go to York Street Project in Jersey City and work with babies. All of you, I hope, have volunteer opportunities, so start looking at us for that. And don't expect that we're going to be with you hours upon hours, but we do want to have an impact, okay? And as a part of that is, what is the impact of the organization? We're not as much focused on numbers as we are seeing that you are succeeding in your mission, that you're doing what your website says, what your strategic plan says, what you're saying to me that you are promising me that you're doing. And then we do like intimate events, not jumping on the gala wagon, no offense, okay? But we do like cocktail hours, okay? We do like meeting others, and just give us 2 hours of your time, and we're going to give it back to you. And then finally, online giving. We love recurring gifts. We get miles, we get cash back on it, and we also know that we're making an impact every month. Talk to us about sustainable giving. And finally, know that we look you up. We do. GuideStar Foundation Center, they just merged, okay? We pay attention to how you're doing. Charity Navigator, all of that. We Google you. We find out who your leadership is. We find out how well you've been doing, and we'll find those articles from so many years back and try and see if there was something going on years ago that wasn't that great, how have you changed it now? While I'm asking you to pay attention to us, we're paying attention right back. That's engagement. So think of giving not as a duty, but as a privilege. I agree, Mr. Rockefeller. So let's talk about that within corporate giving. There is hope, up 15% since 2015. That's a large number, $23.8 billion. Now, when we're talking relative in the United States, $23.8 billion is not a huge number. But within the nonprofit world, it's useful to know. And the giving priorities are based on priorities: number 1, education; number 2, health, social service; 3 is community and economic development. So when you think about the mission that you have and the vision that you have, where do you fall when it comes to corporate giving? Now, my friend Helen will tell you that now's a great time to get out there and talk to corporate giving officers. They had an infusion of money and they had a different tax code come their way. And while there are different reports as to what they're doing with that money they're giving is going up. So now's the time to make that phone call to them. Now's the time to meet with them, not only about their money, but also about volunteer opportunities. Get them in the door. Let them learn what you're doing and why you're doing it. They are making those contributions, but they're fewer and bigger. And they look at the impact. This is where the numbers come in. How many are you serving each and every day? How will our large gift have an impact on what you're doing? And there's an increase in open matching gift programs. So where there used to be such restrictions, now corporations are starting to really pay attention. BP is a great example. They give money on multiple levels. Volunteer hours, okay? If you can get in front of them, volunteer hours are converted into cash, right? Johnson & Johnson is 3-to-1, right? Okay, 3-to-1. Exxon, 3-to-1. If you can get that audience, go for it. All right, and by the way, with this is all about marketing. So when someone returns their gift, I sure hope that on your form it says, I would love for you to talk to my employer, or I absolutely will find out about my master's gift program. Do not be afraid to ask about it. It's a very good chance of doubling that gift. And then pay attention to this, is quite a number. 78% of Americans want companies to address social justice issues. Think about Dick's Sporting Goods. A lot of people paid attention to that, and Dick's sales went up. Think about Nike. People said, no way, they're about to lose a base. Nike sales went up. Whatever our political views, we all do have hearts. And we want to see, to some extent, and I don't mean to wax philosophical here, but we would like to see peace. And Americans are now starting to demand that social justice become a part of the conversation. So I love this. Life is an echo. What you send out comes back. How true, how true. And that really comes back to what works within our industry. 68% of donors prefer email thank yous and 20% hard copy. Pay attention to what the donor is telling you. At the end of the conversation of asking for a gift, $50, $150,000. We'd like to acknowledge your gift. What is the best way to communicate with you? Email's the best. You bet there's an email going out that day. Now, we'll definitely send, for tax purposes, hard copy, but we've got to pay attention to what the donor wants. We talk more and more that we're in a donor-centric world, so everything's about them and not us as nonprofits. I buy that. We can't lose ourselves in it, but at the same time, the only way we're going to succeed in getting money into our doors is by paying attention to what the donor wants. And so when we think about it, giving tributes, yes, fantastic. 36 gave to crowdfunding for individuals. That was for funerals, okay? Somebody needed to build something and they couldn't get the money for it. But people are now giving to people. And we have to pay attention to that too, because there will be people who said, well, I just gave to Johnny because he's doing this, so I can't give to your organization today. Crowdfunding is not going away. We just have to learn how to adapt to it and how to adapt to the personalities that are helping drive its success. And then 20% have charitable giving in their wills. We'd love to see this number grow and grow and grow. If there is ever a time in the history of fundraising, it is now to have planned giving programs. I am not suggesting that on a limited budget you go out and get a planned giving person in-house, because somebody's going to say to me, I don't have enough people. I understand. But on every piece of literature that goes out from your organization, please consider leaving mission in your will. Okay. If you'd like to have a discussion of ways you can leave a legacy to organizations, please call us. All right? Baby boomers are making their wills. So is my generation. So by us paying attention as nonprofits to that, this number is going to rise exponentially. And then finally, 50% gave to natural disasters. Natural disasters aren't going away. And I will tell you that when you look at checkout opportunities to give, they went down when hurricanes were happening, and then they bounced back up. So we as organizations have to pay attention to natural disasters and what they do to giving, but the majority of those people are giving one time. They're not leaving us. They're not saying, well, because this hurricane or tsunami happened, that we're done with giving to you. What they're saying is, at this very moment, my $100 is going to that organization and not you. That does not give you permission to use the natural disaster as an excuse for not making your goals. I just have to put that out there. So can I get your number? Because this is what's happening in our world. Everybody prefers to use their credit cards. Again, miles, cash back, trips to Aruba, okay? 60% versus writing checks. Now, I will tell you that my mother will write a check to everyone. Every single thing that comes in, she'll write a check. Ma, why don't you just go online? PayPal. What is this? All right? So let's not forget that people do write checks. But the online giving, if you, for whatever reason, do not have a Donate Now button on every single page on your website, you are missing out. Okay? And 45% of donors are enrolled in monthly giving programs. What are you doing to market that, the monthly giving programs? Are you saying each time you solicit someone, whether it's in the mail, via email, on the web, or when you're sitting down with them, would you consider enrolling in our monthly giving program? And here's how it's going to help us. It's not about the ask of, can we keep your credit card on file? It's rather talking about what the impact is going to be month to month. That's the important part. Will a person miss $120 at the end of the year because they've been giving to you $10 each month? I don't know. For some, yes. But the reality is it's also painless giving. So paying attention to what's happening is critical, and then knowing what platforms inspire giving. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have not included LinkedIn. We have not included Snapchat and Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I can't even keep up with them. But this is something. Now, how many of you participate in Giving Tuesday? Great. How many of you begin preparing 6 months before Giving Tuesday? Right. So Giving Tuesday was a brilliant move, and it has saturated our market, and I'm starting to press delete on Giving Tuesday. Not because I don't love you, but because I do not want you to fill up my email box anymore. So being creative with it, yes, guess what? Everybody now has a Giving Tuesday challenge. Fantastic to motivate, incentive for people to give. But we've got to pay attention to every single day before Giving Tuesday and every single day after Giving Tuesday. So Bitcoins, how many of you have them? Christine, you do?
No.
Hey, come up here. What do you do?
It's a small amount.
Can you stand up and explain to us in 5 seconds what a Bitcoin is?
Not really. It's some fantasy version of a currency that can't be traced but can be transacted. So it's not real money, but it can function as real money. And if you purchased it while the market was going up, there are a lot of people that became very wealthy. My son saw this. He's in his 20s and thought it was a great idea. I told him, don't spend your money. I'll give you. So we spent $500, and within 2 days it was worth about $40, I think. And so we still own it, but it's an interesting thing, and people do use it to transact business in some instances, and I don't know how.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I hope everybody on the webinar got that. That was brilliant. Thank you, because I still don't understand what it does. And to me, it's almost like monopoly money, but we have to pay attention to it, because there was an organization that I was serving. They had a young man on their board, and he came to me and said, let's wrap up the capital campaign with Bitcoins. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm still having a hard time wrapping my brain around what exactly it does, what it means, how it functions. What does it mean for us in philanthropy? What does it mean for the nonprofits? What are the risks around it? I don't have an answer, but I'm sure that many years ago when the stock market started, people were having those same questions. So Fidelity tells us that they received $69 million in Bitcoins in 2017. and only 7 in 15.
So what do they do with that?
Yeah, what does Fidelity do with it?
They hang on to it.
Really?
Jeff, do you do any Bitcoin?
I stay away from Bitcoin like the plague.
Okay.
It is the Wild West if you want to. As this lady said, if you want to lose money real fast,
Yeah.
go there. If you want to do that, go to Atlantic City or go to Vegas. They'll give you drinks.
Good. Good. As I understand it, they invest and reinvest and invest and reinvest.
But Fidelity is redeeming them and putting them into their donor advised fund.
So,
They receive it.
and I want to talk a little bit about that and what that means.
They're not keeping them, they're redeeming them.
But-
They're redeeming it as soon as it comes in.
But they were reinvesting it when they were first getting it to see where it was going to go. That was one of the things that I was learning.
As your slide says, it's cryptocurrency.
Oh, yes, no, absolutely, but Bitcoin is the main one. Bitcoin is the main one. So there are crowdfunding sites, BitGive, BitHope, HelperBit. We've got to be on top of it. We've got to understand it. And millennials and Generation Z, who are below the millennials, really like the Bitcoins and the cryptocurrency. Now, my suggestion to everybody, this is to Beth's point, okay, is that they increased 44-fold, but then we saw an incredible plummet of value. We can't predict the future. We don't understand where it's going to go, but we do need to be prepared for this. And so I would say, look at your gift acceptance policies. Can you accept cryptocurrency? If so, when you get the cryptocurrency, are you selling it immediately? Who's handling the cryptocurrency? How does this work? So I would sit down with a financial advisor and say to them, we're putting this into our gift acceptance policy. Tell me exactly what that means. But we've got to be prepared because it's coming. It's coming. So the donor advised funds, they are our newest friends, okay, has seen tremendous growth. And a lot of that had to do with the tax reform, okay? But contributions totaled in 2017 almost $30 billion. And the Community Foundation, did you all see this a couple weeks ago that this came out? This is remarkable. Good job, Hans and team. This is great, and good job to everybody who invested in Community Foundation. And so look at the number of donor advised funds over the years and the remarkable increase in 2017. It's almost doubled. Private foundations are beginning to look at donor advised funds and move to that. So how exactly are you as nonprofits paying attention to the donor advised fund to the broker? And how are you paying attention to the soft credit of the donor? Somebody said to me recently, do I send out a thank you to the donor or to Wells Fargo? Where do we send it? Right. The donor already made their gift, right? But what we can do is get in touch with Wells Fargo and say, I'd like to get to know this donor better and see what happens. And so Wells Fargo is going to say, it's not going to happen. So there's a bit of a wall that's happening here. And so with donor advised funds, here's my recommendation. When you are sitting with someone and you are soliciting a gift, ask them, will they be giving through a donor advised fund? So now you're paying attention to the multiple ways that people can give gifts. It's making harder to engage with a donor. We've got to break the walls down to the best of our ability. As fundraisers, as executive directors, as consultants, as board chairs, it is our responsibility to ask, and we need to keep asking, and we need to continue educating ourselves about what's happening out there. Study your donors, respect them, find out as much as you can about them. That is tried and true, we know that. And we also know that we have to pay attention to the diversity that's happening within our country, certainly, within the organizations that we serve, and at the highest levels. What are we doing to address that? And so perhaps you've heard about this, the $4 million in grants from Mellon Foundation, Carnegie Ford, okay, that they're investing in museums to begin addressing this at the highest levels within the board and within the organizations themselves. This caught my eye for Blackbaud. This was a report that they had put out about how philanthropy looks and how the United States population lines up to it. Philanthropy today looks like America 25 years ago. Almost 80% are Caucasian donors. The population in the United States was majority Caucasian in 1990. So paying attention to what the trends are is important, and we have to ensure that we are talking to every demographic that comes through our door.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Women. Anybody ever see Hello, Dolly? It takes a woman, right? I wanted to name this slide that, but then I was like, who knows Hello, Dolly? But it does take a woman, all right? And we have a lot of things going on in this country right now. Look at the private wealth. This is just 2010 through 2015. We are paying a lot of attention now, we should be, to what's happening with women in philanthropy. Bank of America many years ago had done a survey about women in giving, and that really piqued everyone's interest. Women are decision makers when it comes to philanthropy. Women are deliberate and strategic in their giving, and women sometimes give impulsively because their heartstrings were pulled. But paying attention to women is important because they give almost twice as much of their wealth.
Twice as much as men.
Correct. So, and Christine can talk about this, women enjoy collaborative giving. Pardon? Here today. Impact 100 was one of the greatest movements we saw in the state, and I know it's national. But everybody was paying attention as to what was happening. And you continue to grow. You were talking about unions. Fantastic. Collaborative giving. Sustainability investing in the environment. Children are the future, okay? And then the hands-on volunteer experiences. This goes for every gender. It goes for every generation. And it is the most popular way to engage someone when they see hands-on what they are doing for an organization. So just a couple thoughts. This just came out. My colleague Lauren Sworn had put this up recently about the 5 tips for better diversity in fundraising. But this is really organizational when you look at it, okay? Our potential for bias, we have to pay attention to that. Never judge a book by its cover when someone comes in, okay? Every person that walks through your door, in my eyes, is a prospective donor. Years ago, I was doing a campaign, and the donor was about 89, 90 years old. She wore a Yankees cap, had a walker like this, her clothes, not so good. And everybody looked at her like, she'll just keep giving her $50. Fast forward a couple of years later, we're looking at a $750,000 request, right? And a request to her family to continue giving $50 every year as a reminder. So we hear time and again, millionaire next door, but the fact is that we have to pay attention no matter who they are. What stereotypes are out there and what are the challenges within our organization with the stereotypes? And that goes back to biases. Also, expose yourself to foreign experiences. I'm not saying, go to Europe tomorrow. What I'm saying is push yourself a little bit beyond your limits and learn more about what's around you and what's around the world. How do we diversify? This is hard. Everyone I speak to says to me, Vicki, we need to diversify our board, okay? But these are some tips that I saw. Make sure your board and staff reflect the community. I understand that sometimes there's a challenge with that, but also make sure that people know what your non-discrimination policies are. That's really important. I want to know if I'm giving to you that you are not sending anybody away for who they are, what they believe, okay? Additionally, participating in community events, MLK Day, Coming Out Day, whatever it may be, but that shows inclusiveness. That means that people walk through that door and no one's turned away, okay? And then utilizing whatever networks and relationships are around you. Emotion and reason in giving has led us to 2016. And what happened, from whatever perspective, it gave birth to what is now being coined as rage giving. It's the act of feverishly throwing money at a cause you believe in because you don't know what the hell else to do. Planned Parenthood got a lot of money. ACLU, lots of money, okay? And episodic giving are people who give to organizations in response to specific events, okay? Disasters, headline news, and political actions. That's what we saw for midterms this year. Money was going to those midterm candidates, and money was going to the organizations that supported women and to political action committees that were supporting favored candidates. Giving because of what people believe in or they see a perceived injustice. So ACLU actually saw a spike in 2017, and in 2018 they went down just a couple million. Okay. Every Town for Gun Safety Action Fund, after Parkland, you better believe Moms Demand Action was getting calls and money. And then National Immigration Law Center, huge dollars coming in. Think about what your missions are. I'm not saying in any way capitalize on those, but think about how you message those missions in a world that, to some extent, is insane. How exactly can you bring people so much closer to what you're doing based on those you're serving and how you're serving them? So it comes back to the basics. Fundraising, identify who you want to ask for money. How old are they? What do they do? When's their birthday? What's the connection to them? Who else are they giving to? Cultivate them. Bring them closer. Give them a tour. Bring them to the food bank. Whatever it takes to get to know them. They are not an ATM. Solicit their support. Yes, definitely. But give them time as well. Going for the big bucks immediately, your return's not going to be that great. But bringing them close to you, you bet. And then recognition and stewardship. How are their gifts being used? Have they had an impact? Why does it matter that they're giving to you? And then why people give, we can't ever ignore this. This remains the same. Because they have a personal concern for your mission, because leadership is strong at the top. Every organization I give to because I believe in their CEO and I know their board is doing good work. And I research them, okay? And I believe in what they're doing, why this institution, why this mission exists. And additionally, their plans are good. We were just talking about this before we started, about strategic plans, okay? 3 to 5 years out, don't do it. 2 years. And be prepared to change course at any moment. But make sure you're sharing these plans with people. You have a strategic plan. Do you have a development plan? Does that development plan complement your strategic plan? If you have facilities, do you have a master plan? Do you have a business plan? Because more and more donors are saying to me, I want to see the business plan first before I give. The prospect was asked. We will never know if they're going to give until they're actually asked. And then people don't give because they don't believe in what you're doing, that the organization is not stable. What happens inside is often heard outside. So we learn more about an organization that we may never want to know, but we have to pay attention to what's happening. And then no one thanked the donor the first time, and then all of a sudden they're asking for another gift. This is the most fatal mistake in fundraising. And we as development directors, as executive directors, CEOs, board members, et cetera, have such a responsibility to steward people. They have chosen to give to this particular mission. They have chosen not to buy X, Y, Z, but to instead invest in you. Thanking is the most important part of fundraising. And then the wrong people were solicited. I have a dog. I really, really like him. When I go home, I pet him because he makes me happier. I am probably not going to give to the rescue that year, or the year before that, or the year after. Not because I don't believe in what the rescue's doing, but because I have philanthropic priorities. So researching me is just as important, and understanding where I'm coming from is just as important as what I'm doing with you. And then the wind-up is, so my grandfather used to always say to me, when I knew when he was getting, after 2 hours, getting to his point, he'd say to me, so the wind-up is, the stock market only tells part of the story. I have friends who have been looking for jobs for 4 years. They're college graduates, and they're still waiting to be employed. They have sent out millions of resumes. Their cover letters are spot on. They have gone to every networking event known to human beings. While the stock market is going up, that doesn't mean that personal circumstances for individuals are that great. At the same time, we know that donors are paying attention to what's happening in the stock market. We know that they're reaching out to their financial advisors, and we also know we can't predict the future. So, stock gifts are important. They must be a part of a conversation, and every donor has an individual circumstance that we must, as nonprofits who are asking for money, we must better understand. Additionally, politics are playing a role, and I don't see that ending anytime soon. But the fundamentals are strong. They have remained the same. But the way that we communicate with one another is different. The way that we talk, the way that we phone, the way that we text, we tweet, etc. And the messaging has changed as well. We are now messaging in 120 characters, 240 characters, okay? How exactly do we get our message out in so few words? It is our job to focus and to communicate in the way that people are receptive to it. Collaborations, how are we doing on that? Are we having conversations with organizations that have missions that complement ours? Are we stepping back from the territorial mindset and saying, you know what, it's okay if we share donor XYZ. It's all right because we're doing something for our community, not for ourselves and our egos. I will never get off the collaboration train. And then don't chase the money. For those of you who have known me, I get nervous when you come to me and say, Vicki, this foundation just put out a brand new RFP, and I think we're going to get involved in it. So tell me what that's about. Well, it's completely not a part of our mission, but they're giving $35,000 out, and we should go get it. Pay attention to what you're doing, who you're serving, why you're doing it. And even if a foundation says to you, we're doing this new thing, it doesn't mean you should follow that law. Steadfast in your mission and articulate your vision. Where are you going? I get the mission part, but where are you going? How are you going to get there? What do you need from me as a donor to get there? What can I offer you on that road? We have to remain optimistic. I am tired. I feel like we are working 24 hours a day, and we are doing really, really good work. I believe that. And at times, we are faced with, what's next? Our phones are exploding. What's next? But I think that within this industry, remaining optimistic is our best weapon against it all. Because we do believe in what we're doing. We are doing good things, and there is the reason being our hearts. As I had mentioned before, no matter what your affiliation is, it's our hearts. And the people who benefit from what we're doing, there is great gratitude. And if they can remain optimistic at times, I'd love to join them. We don't work in the nonprofit sector. I love it. We work in the for change sector. Are there any questions? Can we do it again? No. Very good. Okay.
Hi, thank you very much. Will we have access to your PowerPoint through Sobel?
Sure, yeah, What? Keep the questions.
They're asking if they have access to the PowerPoint. The answer is yes. Copyright Semple Bixel Associates. that the other question? Same question.
Recently doing some studies through Foundation Center and things like that, I'm finding a lot more of the foundations are by invitation only, which makes it very, very challenging. Any suggestions, any thoughts on that?
You know, I always stand by the idea that foundations are people too.
Yeah.
And so making sure you're going to the right events where perhaps foundation board members or executives are, when they're doing panels or New Jersey Council of Grant Makers, if they have events, go talk to people who, you know, some of the decision makers, and just ask them, how do I get on the list? What do I need to do? Who do I need to talk to? Yeah. I mean, it's true, because when you think about it, the amount of nonprofits that are asking those foundations for money is more than any other time in history. And so they've got to put parameters around it, and I respect that greatly. At the same time, it hurts us because it's prohibiting our opportunity as to whether are we missing something. And so with the foundations, I love learning from their leaders. And I love when the leaders learn from the nonprofits.
Develop foundation profiling. You do that without.
Go ahead.
One suggestion is that if you develop funders profiles for some of those foundations and share those regularly with your board, we have found if people know people, they're willing to make an introduction call to who those decision makers are. That's gotten us a couple of invitations to apply over a few years.
At the end, I noticed the PowerPoint saying essentially that distributing hasn't changed, but communication and communication styles have changed. So in your own practice, where have you seen the most communication style, where you have implemented communication changes?
That's a great question. So I still believe very much, so the question is, how has communication changed? I think that one-on-one is still the most important way to engage a person, but learning how people, like we saw with email, okay, learning how people want to receive their information is important. So the only way that any of us can adapt is by asking the donor how they want to be communicated with and paying attention to the changing demographics. And what that means is, how old are they? What are their interests? What do they want to know about our organization? If we have an organization that has a broad mission and serves many people and has X, Y, Z, you know, and 5 different things that it does, we've got to learn from our donors what actually brought them to us, or how did we get them closer to the mission. So communicating only that point with them is important, okay? And that's the conversations. When I say communication has changed, yes, Facebook, Twitter, all of that, but it's rather the way we communicate our message has changed. People don't an hour and a half to sit with us anymore. People don't have an hour and a half to read a 50-page case for support anymore. So we've got to adapt and respect time is really what I'm saying in terms of communication. Other questions? Yes.
Vicki, do you see a trend in terms of the number of nonprofits growing, or is that relatively flat?
Do we see a trend in the number of nonprofits growing? Like more nonprofits or their revenue?
Yeah, more.
I don't have an answer to that. We can get that from Linda Zippo, but I don't have an answer to that. We saw growth in nonprofits around the recession, and then we saw actually it pull back when nonprofits were closing too. So I'm not sure what the data is now on that. Devin.
Regarding boards, have you seen any trends that are creating more success and engagement across boards, recruitment, the type of people that are interested in boards, populations we're missing when recruiting for board members? Do you see any? Generation X
and retirees. Yeah. If you can get retirees, that's gold, definitely. But Generation X too, it's, as I was saying, there's 65 million of us, and we've got to be able to pull them in closer. I've had this conversation multiple times with multiple people that we want to be very strategic when we're putting somebody on the board. We don't want to look at their profile and say, they fit the demographic that we want.
Right.
We want to try them out with our events, right? We want to have tours with them, learn what type of giving habit they have, and really get to know that person prior to giving on board, prior to putting them on the board. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today.
What time is it? 2:55. Oh, good, okay.